We're going to start off with the Houston Rockets hiring Ime Udoka,
Tough.
Dehls' former head coach. Now, it is important to say that Adrian Wojnarowski reported that the NBA's investigation into Udoka's contact didn't find anything that precluded any team from hiring him as a head coach. Man, my Houston Rockets, man, where do I start?
What are we doing?
When it comes to the Houston Rockets,
It's the
James Harden
12th
may have
team.
left, but the city still has my support 100% in what they do. I'm a Jalen Green fan. I think that's been apparent when I'll be tweeting about him all the time. And there's a chance James Harden comes back. Ime Udoka, 51 and 31, first time head coach, trip to the NBA Finals. I think the best part about him going to Houston is that Houston now has a head coach that is a truly great head coach. He will be proven because he will be tested, I should say, because Ime had some great assistants. You talk about Will Hardy, you talk about Joe Mazzulla. Those guys are two of the best head coaches in the NBA right now. So we're gonna find out a lot about Ime and whether or not he was leaning on his assistants more so than he was making the calls when things got tough. But when it comes to this Rockets fit, Ime is somebody who will instill a winning culture in this team, instill toughness, hold players accountable. His first year as Celtics head coach, they had the first ranked defense. Houston this season was 29th in defensive rating. I think he'll get these players to buy in defensively. And the problem with Houston is not scoring. They have a good offense when they're not free balling out there, but they have capable offensive players. And if they can play defense, they can win more games than we expect next season. And I think to me, it's obvious why Ime took this job. I know people want to laugh at the Rockets organization. They have been mismanaged, but this team is an intriguing spot. You have a plethora of young talent with Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith, all players who have star potential. I think Tari Eason is a sleeper to be a star in this league because he has been that good as a rookie, as a two-way wing. And then you have other pieces like Kenyon Martin Jr., who's a good young player. Josh Christopher hasn't gotten minutes, but when he's gotten them, he's been good. And we'll see what they get out of Ty. Not to mention, you're going to get a top 3 pick. So you're either getting Victor, Scoot, or Brandon Miller. Those are 3 of the best prospects in this draft. You add that to this group of guys, that's a lot. And then you have salary cap. If the Rockets do indeed bring back James Harden with Ime's leadership, with this roster's young talent, maybe you sign another veteran or two. This could be a play-in team next year, and the Rockets could make a sizable jump.
Before we dive into Ime real quick, I'm gonna praise him. It's something we're never gonna know what exactly went down in Boston to end his tenure there, but ultimately we're probably never gonna know what exactly fully went down. I think for the Rockets, though, from a basketball perspective, this was a total home run. What we talk about that Celtics team is, oh, they went to the finals, but not really the part of the season where they're under 500, losing to teams like the Wizards nonstop, and they seem like they're on track to be a playing team. And after Brad Stevens stepped down, it was Ime that took that team to the finals for the first time in over a decade. It was Ime that took Jason Tatum's game to another level offensively and really maximized the defensive talent for a Celtics team that, look, they had like 4 or 5 elite defenders damn near individually. But it wasn't until Udoka came in that they became a top 5 defense, truly elite, top 1 by the end of the season. So in terms of what the Rockets are getting here, the most important thing is probably not just his resume, but it's the accountability that he brought into Boston, because the Celtics kind of tuned out at a certain point Brad Stevens, but with Udoka, they fully bought in and invested into his defensive principles. And offensively, he got the team to play more in flow. It was less ISO-centric, and we saw by the playoffs that was the difference maker, and then going further along. But I think for the Rockets, they ultimately got Udoka because they were going to pay him more than any other team. And it seemed like, to be honest, they probably didn't really care too much about what went down in Boston as well. I don't know if their morals are as high as the Raptors, who are another team that was interested in Udoka, but they have a lot of female assistants within the organization. I didn't really think he was going to get hired by the Raptors, to be honest with you guys. But the last thing for the Rockets, though, is they have $60 million this offseason with the projected second overall pick, and they're going to phase 2 of a rebuild where, look, after this year, they don't have their first round pick most likely. That's top 4 protected in 2024 because of the Westbrook trade. So not only do you have to entice free agents to want to come, which having a better head coach helps with that. But you also have the internal pressure of, okay, Raphael Stone, our general manager, is on the hot seat. We have to start winning games because the last 3 years have been the worst team in the league. And I think that's what really led them to just taking the no-brainer hire here in Udoka.
Oh man, basketball. I like the hire. I like the hire for the simple fact of I like the mindset that Ime comes to, like, he brings into the locker room. He's a guy that holds his players accountable. He's a guy that's very stern. He's the guy that brings that confidence into his players. And for Houston, they need that. Joel, you rattled off the players. A lot of those guys are young, inexperienced, still go wild guys. They need that type of take accountability, that type of coach who's going to sit here and tell them right from wrong. And I think that's important. That's somebody that they need. I don't know what type of draft pick they're going to have in this upcoming draft. That's going to be important. That's going to be the first pick Ime gets to fully develop, and I think that is going to be huge. But bringing in somebody with the mentality that Ime has, or the maturity that Ime is looking for, I think that's important. But this is a good start for Houston's rebuild. I think they've been rebuilding for some time. They didn't really know how to do it the right way. I think this is a really good start. He may not, be the best hire. He may not be the best development coach, but somebody with his personality, his aura, his persona, you kind of need that in the locker room full of young kids, kind of kids with no direction, guys who don't really listen to their coach now. And I think the staff he builds is going to be more important too. The guys he brings around, guys who can help these younger players after practice and behind the scenes. I think that's also really important, because if you look, for example, Steve Kerr's cast out there in Golden State is elite. He had Kenny Atkins, he had Mike Brown, he had Barboza for some time. Like, he had some dudes in that cast that were really Steve Nash, who helped Kevin Durant, helped Steph Curry. So when you have that coach and then the people behind him that's just as good as the coach, I think that just makes it even better for the process. So shout out to Houston. First good move. Now it's the draft. See where they go from here. But I like what they're doing with Ime. I really do.
How's my audio?
Stinky.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thank you, John. Riv, that was unnecessary.
It's normal.
Yeah, it's not great. Whatever. Give me a mic. Anyway,
that was backhanded. That was backhanded. It's normal.
It's normal. It was so rude. This Ime hire, I love it. From a Celtics perspective, he came in bit of a shaky start, and it's going to be interesting to see how his personality meshes with Houston, because when he first got there in Boston, that is, he was calling out the players. He was calling out Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. And they, at first, it didn't go over, I think, as well as people anticipated. You leave from Brad Stevens, who's just getting to do all these conference finals, who moves up to president of basketball ops. So Ime, there's a bit of skepticism, I think, around him at that time when he enters Boston. So maybe the trust wasn't there. But obviously, by the end of the season, that second half turnaround that really relied on their defense proved everything of how great of a coach he is. In terms of player development, or I guess player relationships, Jason Tatum said it's his favorite coach he's ever had, from college, high school, to Mazzulla, to Brad Stevens. He said Ime is his favorite coach. And then you have Jaylen Brown, who reportedly didn't always see eye to eye with Ime. So you have two superstars who are a bit on a different spectrum with this head coach. And it's also interesting to note that we never really figured out what exactly happened with this whole scandal. It was never something that seems like it didn't allow, or I should say, it didn't not allow Ime to get another head coaching position. He obviously went to Houston. He got the job. He was interested in the Brooklyn job after they fired Steve Nash. So whatever happened was not bad enough for him to knock another job, but it was also never really made 100% public what actually transpired. For Houston, this is a great hire. They need someone who's going to hold these young guys accountable. They're going to need someone who's going to instill defense on this team, because this team played no type of defense. Their offense was gross. I mean, they're a reason why they have one of the best odds to get the number one overall pick. They won like fucking 18 games. They were not a good team last year. Steven Silas, going from Silas to Ime is going to be one of the biggest jumps in head coach that we are going to see in the NBA this season. So I think it's a great hire for Houston.
Bro, one minor W's for the Houston Rockets was that they almost had as many road wins as the Golden State Warriors. So, you take your minor victories where you can. As for talking about
what the fuck? Like, what was the point of that? Like, we finished higher than you.
Round two, bro.
You know what? That was a bait. I'm not even going to I'm gonna take
That bait
the
is
higher
just
road.
stupid. Yeah, smart. So talk about Ime
Yeah, so
to the Rockets.
stop this Jaylen Brown to Houston. I see it all the time. Jaylen Brown and Ime did not get along. So you
Tatum's
could
going
throw
to
that
Houston.
away.
Tatum's
So
going to Houston.
Tatum's leaving.
Yeah, Tatum's
Shit. Then you're really fucked.
He has 8
Jalen
points.
so,
So-
Atlanta.
Tatum
So
is
Ime going-
Brown is 10 for 13 right now.
Yeah,
Ime going
just-
to Houston is an amazing hire for literally every single reason that you guys said. What Houston needs is accountability and a head coach that's going to light a fire under their ass. And now I don't want to say that Steven Silas is solely to blame for that, because he really did not have as much say as he may have wanted to because of the organization and what they were telling him behind the scenes and really handcuffing his ability to be a true head coach. I just hope for Ime's sake that he has free range to do whatever he needs to do for the betterment of this team. But it really does start with the draft when talking about this Houston Rockets team. Yes, I understand that that Brandon Miller's intriguing. Obviously, if you have the number 1 overall pick, you take Victor Wembanyama. But if you have the number 2 overall pick, you go Scoop, because you desperately need that point guard that you can finally look at if you're the Houston Rockets, say this guy is going to initiate our offense. I understand that Sengun's a great passer in and of himself, but regardless, you need that true point guard so that you can get guys like Jalen Green involved, and Jalen Green doesn't have to worry about anything other than getting a bucket. And you have a guy in Scoot who can get him into his spots. Jabari Smith now has a point guard that he can work with the pick and roll, the pick and pop now. Sengun also, that they can have the back and forth of who can play make. I think that if I'm the Rockets, I definitely want Scoot on my team. But in talking about Ime, the reason why this is just a great hire is because you need someone that can really just have these players motivated to want to get to that next level. Because right now, that's what these players are lacking. They're lacking accountability. And I think that that's what Ime will provide.
When you look at what Ime did for Robert Williams and how he improved as a passer in the short post, I think that in the low post, I do think that Sengun can improve mightily under Ime in similar aspects. And Sengun is a much more gifted passer than Robert Williams. So I think that Ime will use him in a lot of different ways. Scoot would be a good pick, because he's ultra talented. But I don't think that the Rockets need a young point guard to come here. I think they need an established player. And
Agreed.
that player is James Harden. It's been rumored this entire season that James Harden is open to going back to Houston. Kevin Porter Jr. is not the guy long term for them at that position. James Harden has obviously transitioned his game from being score first to pass first, and I think that him being in a starting lineup of a team with Jalen Green and Tari Eason and Jabari and Sengun can do a lot for those players' games and to open them up.
So at 2, you would take Brandon.
I wouldn't take Brandon. I probably would still take Scoot if I'm at 2, but I would still bring in James Harden, and I'd have Scoot earn his spot.
I think Brandon Miller is one of the best wing prospects in years, but here's the reality. Houston is praying for Victor because no team needs him more. Alperen Sengun can't protect the rim. He's not a good defender. He's also not floor spacer much either. We don't think he'll develop that. So if you can pair him up with a center that can shoot it, can protect the rim, and also has a handle as well, that would be the perfect pairing, I think, in the front court. But I agree with you wholeheartedly, Joel, because KPJ is the perfect 6-man, I would say, as that spark plug, but not a guy that comes out at the gate and starts. More importantly, closes games here because he's a little bit too erratic, particularly on the ball. But James Harden, I think we all know at this point, is probably going to end up there because it's hard to imagine Philadelphia paying him. And if that's the case, what team has the most cap space? It is the Rockets. Harden, if memory serves, said, I'm going to be back. And it seems like this, if they can get a top 3 pick, maybe 1 or 2 veterans in the wing, that would be a good opportunity for him.
It could be a team that is very great in a couple years.
I don't know. I don't know if I would tie money to Harden. I don't know. That's
short term deal.
You're not tying it to anything else.
Why wouldn't Philly sign Harden?
You said what, John? I'm sorry.
They've got a lot of money,
They
and
do.
this free agent class stinks. They desperately need a point guard that can play make, space the floor. Harden's taking a little more of the catch and shoot stuff. He knows at this point, hey, look, it may not work out this year in Philadelphia. We get bounced. Let me go to Houston, where I'm from. No state income tax. Daryl Morey is no longer there, but I'll get paid a lot of money, and I get to be that mentor as I go into my twilight years. Maybe a 4-year deal. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him a 4-year, which if I'm Philadelphia, I don't know if I'd give that to him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I do think they need that. They need somebody to relax the offense a bit. I think that is James Harden ultimately.